It was a golden September afternoon when I sat on my cabin porch in Maple Hollow, sipping coffee with 3 colleagues from the library where I work. The air was crisp, the leaves just starting to turn, and I thought I'd finally found peace in the modest cabin I'd bought with 8 years of savings. I'm Daniel Harper, a librarian by day and a woodworker by night, content with crafting bookshelves in my quiet workshop. But that calm shattered when Susan Caldwell, the Homeowners Association president, marched across my lawn like a dictator ready to declare war. Her sleek athleisure and severe bun screamed control, and her eyes burned with accusation. What began as a petty complaint about a few friends on my porch spiraled into a neighborhood uprising, exposing a web of deceit that left everyone questioning who they could trust. The trouble started innocently. My friends and I were planning a book fair when Susan planted herself at my porch steps, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Mr. Harper, you're in direct violation of HOA Regulation 15C, she snapped, clutching her phone like a weapon. Gatherings of more than 3 non-residents require board approval. My friends exchanged baffled glances, and I felt my stomach twist. I'd been in Maple Hollow 3 months, keeping my lawn neat and my life private. "What regulation?" I asked, keeping my tone even. "We're just having lunch on my property." Susan's lips curled, and she launched into a tirade about community standards, citing a rule I'd never seen in the HOA paperwork I'd pored over before buying my cabin. Then her sister, Emily Caldwell, the HOA vice president, hurried over, looking flustered. Emily was Susan's softer shadow, same chestnut hair, but with a nervous energy that betrayed her lack of cunning. "Susan, wait," she called, then turned to us with a shaky smile. "Hi, I'm Emily." Sorry, Susan's just protective. But in her rush to defuse, Emily dropped a bombshell. "We've been keeping an eye on this place since we set up the cameras." She stopped, her face paling as Susan's glare could have ignited a forest fire. "Cameras?" I repeated, a chill settling in. Emily, oblivious to the hole she was digging, babbled about a surveillance system installed 2 months ago to monitor new neighbors. "The cameras," she said, captured my porch and driveway perfectly. The invasion of my privacy hit like a slap. For weeks, these women had been watching me, logging my every move like I was a suspect. Susan tried to spin it as neighborhood safety, but Emily's nervous chatter revealed more. The gathering rule was added just last week to uphold standards. When Emily let slip that Susan wanted to buy my cabin for 60% of its value to expand our garden, my friend's eyes widened, and my shock turned to anger. I wasn't just Daniel Harper, the quiet librarian anymore. I was a target, and Susan had picked the wrong fight. The next morning, I was sanding a bookshelf when a police cruiser pulled up. Officer Delgado, a veteran cop with a no-nonsense air, stepped out. "Mr. Harper, we got a 911 call about a disturbance here. The caller says you're a threat to neighborhood security." I explained the lunch, emphasizing its innocence, and Delgado's skeptical frown suggested he wasn't sold on Susan's story. That's when my neighbor, Walter Reed, a retired detective in his late 60s, approached with a thick folder. "Officer, I've got evidence," he said, handing over pages documenting Susan's 17 false 911 calls that year. "She's driven out 3 families with fake complaints," Walter said, detailing noise violations that were kids playing and suspicious activity that was just yard work. Emily jogged over, her face a mask of panic. "It's a misunderstanding," she insisted, but her rambling only worsened things. Susan's cameras, her files on residents, her obsession with my schedule. When she mentioned Susan's plan to buy my cabin cheap, Delgado's notepad snapped shut. "This sounds like harassment," he said, handing me his card. "Document everything, Mr. Harper. And you," he turned to Emily. "Tell your sister to brush up on the law." That night, Walter showed me his full dossier, a timeline of 8 families forced out by Susan, their homes bought cheap by her shell company, Caldwell Properties LLC, and flipped for profit. The Thompsons endured 17 police calls over their kids' swing set. The Kims were harassed over their garden. Susan's playbook was ruthless: target, intimidate, buy low, sell high. When Emily knocked with a plate of cookies to clear the air, her eyes widened at Walter's papers. "Susan just wants to protect property values," she stammered, admitting to files on everyone's habits. When I asked about the cameras, she claimed they were for security, but Walter cited state law. Surveillance without consent was illegal. Emily fled, muttering about Susan's strategy to gain my trust. By Monday, Susan's retaliation hit like a storm. The Maple Hollow social media page exploded with posts accusing me of aggressive behavior and threats. Photos showed trampled flowers and litter on my lawn, damage that didn't exist when I went to bed. My librarian's research skills kicked in. A reverse image search revealed the photos were stolen from unrelated sites and photoshopped. I documented my pristine yard with time-stamped photos, bracing for more. Susan called an emergency HOA meeting, expecting a lynch mob. Only 3 residents showed up, but her PowerPoint was a masterpiece of lies. Fake charts of declining property values, graphs of security risks, and the doctored photos. I stood, plugged in my laptop, and tore her narrative apart, showing the original sources and my clean yard. The room went quiet. Mrs. Larson, an elderly neighbor, whispered, "She faked these?" The meeting ended without action. Susan lacked the votes, but the tide was turning. The next morning, Delgado returned with another officer, responding to Susan's second 911 call, claiming I'd threatened her at the meeting. Walter played a recording of the event, capturing Susan's desperation and my calm rebuttal. Neighbors gathered, led by Mrs. Larson, sharing stories. Susan's complaints about playgrounds, gardens, even string lights, all to drive families out. Emily, arriving in a panic, babbled about Susan's cameras zooming into windows and her theory that my bookshelves hid a drug operation. The absurdity drew chuckles, but the mood darkened when her phone rang on speaker. "Ms. Caldwell, this is Lauren Rivera from the DA's office," a voice announced. "We're investigating harassment, false reports, and property manipulation across 3 neighborhoods." Emily, clueless, confirmed Susan's tactics: vandalism, cutting utilities, throwing rocks at windows, all to force sales. The crowd erupted, realizing their HOA fees funded their torment. Susan grabbed the phone, but it was too late. The vote to remove her was unanimous, her empire collapsing. 3 weeks later, Maple Hollow was reborn. Neighbors laughed openly, kids played freely, and the air felt alive. Susan and Emily became pariahs, ignored by all. Mrs. Larson turned away at the mailbox. The Wilsons drove off mid-sentence. When a moving truck arrived, Susan oversaw it with frantic energy, selling her house at a loss. The irony sharp. Walter played one last recording. Susan's first confrontation, her calculated threats undeniable. The DA charged her with fraud, false reporting, and theft. Emily, still oblivious, tried chatting with neighbors, but even the mailman walked away. As I sat on my porch with Walter, watching the sunset, I realized my cabin hadn't just given me solitude, it had sparked a revolution. Susan's reign of fear was over, replaced by a community united. True power isn't control, it's the strength of people standing together. If you've faced a tyrant like Susan, know this: truth and solidarity can topple them. Share your fight, and let's remind the world that no one's untouchable.